Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. For those who've been hanging with me some time, and welcome to those who are new to my channel. I'm Adele Levine, intuitive medium. And if you haven't noticed, since there's a half of me here and a blank slate for someone else, I have a guest on, which I rarely ever do. And I'm really excited. This is someone you don't know. This is someone you're going to be introduced to. And here he is, Jeff.
Ta-da!
All right. This is awesome. This is Jeff, and you don't know yet how important it is that he's on. So let me do a little intro. Jeff is someone I've known for a very long time. We have kept in touch no matter what's going on. Somehow we always find back to each other, and it goes way, way back. And why do I have him on? Because you guys have asked me several times, how did I get started? When did I first know? How did I start reading? And this is where the story begins with Jeff. We were working at Starbucks, and I did not know him. He did not know me. He heard of me, which he'll tell his side of the story, which I'm sure is going to be how amazing I was, how he heard all these wonderful angelic things about me. I don't want to, I don't want to speak for him or anything, but I'm sure that's what we're going for. And it was a very strange time in my life. I was having a lot of experiences and things going on. I was seeing things. My mom had just died, and I wanted to test my sight on someone if it was real. And I heard Jeff's father had passed. He had just started. I knew nothing about him. And so I walked up to him and said, "What do you remember, Jeff?"
I'll take it now, Adela. So, okay. So, all right. So,
Yes.
a little backstory. I had started working at Starbucks in November of the year that we met. And like mid-November, my dad died beginning of December. I had only worked a few shifts. Didn't know Adela very well. I think we might have worked one shift together.
And it was in the 90s, we want to specify.
The 1990s
So
before
OG
this.
Starbucks. Yeah.
You don't even want to know what happened behind the scenes to get this thing set up. I have 17 books. It's like Tetris over here. Anyway, I digress. So I was working. So I had never worked. I worked with Adela maybe once before. And all I knew is she sort of had a reputation that preceded herself. At that time, mind you, we were both in our 20s. And Adela was sort of, you just didn't want to get on her bad side. I'm sure that hasn't changed much.
You never want to get on that bad side. Still.
But I just remember like people were like, just, do your job and don't get in her way, that kind of stuff. So I was like, cool, I'll do that. I can do that. I can take a hint. And, so I remember, so my dad died in December. I took some time off and then obviously started back to work. And one of the maybe third shift in from working, Adela happened to be working that same day. And so I think I was working the main register. Adela's working on bar. It was very different back then. We can talk about that another time. And
yeah, that's a whole nother video or something, because it was a different world, guys.
That's
We're
a
the
whole
OGs.
other bag of beans, folks.
We were like maybe the third store in LA. Just saying.
Yes, it's giving you some little backstory.
Little backstory, right?
So I was pouring something out in the sink or washing my hands. I don't remember which. And I remember Adela walked up to me, which was unusual because we didn't talk that much at that time. We weren't like, "Hey, how was your weekend?" With nothing like that.
No.
And no. And
because I didn't know him.
Exactly.
I purposely chose him because I didn't know him. I thought if I know him, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So I'm pouring something out, and she said, "I have a question to ask you. Can I ask you something?" or something to that effect. And I was like, "Sure." And she's like, "Did your dad just died, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Well, I'm sorry to hear that." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks." And she's like, "So Long pause, long dramatic pause. And I'm like, yes. And she was like, so he's been visiting me. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, how open are you okay with that? Like, how open are you to that? And I was like, yeah, I'm totally open to that. What did he say? And she was like, you're okay with this? Like, mad about it. Like, sort of felt like she was angry that I was interested in it. And
I was hoping he would shut it down so I didn't have to go through with it. I was so
I,
scared.
I was like, yeah, what did he say? And she's like, I can't deal with this right now. I have to go on a break. So she grabbed her purse or whatever was there, walked away, and left me sort of high and dry, going,
Making
what
lattes.
the, what the, okay, that was weird, but whatever. So she went on her break, and then she came back, and at that time, I was working the bar, and I'm like, hello, and she was like, I don't remember exactly. I think you had calmed down a little bit by that time, but I was like, what did my father tell me? I want to know. And
Well, I described him to you. That was the first thing I did because that was my first test. If I
oh,
described
that's right.
him to him and he
Right.
got it, then I would go on with it. Yeah.
So she first described, now, mind you, again, I have to reiterate, I'd only been working there less than a month. I did not know Adela from, any of the customers coming in. I knew her name and I knew, that you didn't get in her way. And so I didn't know much about her. She didn't know much
Oh
about
boy.
me. And so I didn't, so she started describing my dad physically, which none of my friends, even the friends I had then, had ever really seen my dad because my dad was in the hospital right after I started at Starbucks. So nobody, and like I have mentioned, we didn't have cell phones. You didn't have pictures of everybody at your fingertips. So
Right.
I had no idea. And when she described my dad, I'll never forget because she described him physically and much like I have now, which is not much hair on top. I used to have very long, luxurious hair in the
Long,
90s.
luxurious blonde hair.
I mean,
Hmm.
everybody was jealous of my hair. But
They
so
were.
at any
No,
rate,
I loved his hair. Even though I didn't,
I
yeah, no, he
remember
did. But
I
it's important to
remember
point that out because your dad, because you didn't,
I
the way
yeah.
I described him was more like how you look, which is kind of trippy. I just realized. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's like, he
Look
has
now.
like a bald spot, like a monk cap here, and a mustache. And I'm like, that's totally what my dad looked like. How do you know these things? Because, like I've said a bazillion times, nobody knew what my dad looked like.
There was no Google. There was
No
nothing.
Google, no Insta, Facebook search, Gram, nothing. It was all
Instagram.
very
Yeah.
archaic.
Okay.
So that kind of hit me like, how does she know what he looks like? The kicker to me, though, was when she started describing my dad's personality, I didn't talk about my dad. First of all, it was so painful to deal with the fact that he was so sick that I didn't want to, like, be
Right.
bogged down. In your 20s, you don't want to be bogged down and, like, talking about that sad stuff. So
Right.
I was very, like, I kept to myself describing, I wouldn't describe what my dad looked like or how his personality was. But when she started describing his personality traits, he was kind and he was persistent, but he was a very gentle man. And that's when I got goosebumps because we had just decided my dad's tombstone, his head marker, his grave marker. And my mom was really insistent on capturing, you only have 10 words, on capturing my dad's personality for his headstone. And she wrote, he was a kind, loving, and gentle man, not gentleman. And she wanted to make sure the people in charge didn't make it one word because
Make a mistake. Right.
he wasn't a gentleman like, hello. He was a gentle person. He was a gentle man. So when she said that, I was like, you obviously have been talking to my dad.
And
Nobody else would know that.
and you don't remember this, but I do, because I was doing a lot of self-checking because I was
Hmm.
like skeptical of myself. But I even like backtracked and got nervous and said, well, everybody, when people die, we tend to angelic them. We kind of make them like, oh, they were angelic, they were gentle, they were. So I said, maybe that's just too broad. And I was like really like ready to like just, squirm away. And
Right.
then Jeff was like, no, you don't understand. And then when
Yeah.
he said that, that was like, that's when everything changed. When he said that, more than anything, that in that moment I went, there's no way I could have known that there's something happening here.
Yeah.
And Jeff was so kind about it, and he was so open about it. And I wasn't expecting that either. I was fully prepared for him to tell me to just fuck off. And I really did not believe he was going to be so kind about it. So when he was kind about it, and his dad said, and he verified that, I was smoking in those days, and why I kept leaving is because I was running to my car like a crazy person going, what is it? It was like a movie, and I was like, how do I hear you? And he's like, now listen, here's the rules. This is why I wanted Jeff to come on, is because his dad laid it down for what I teach and what I do for 16 years. And his dad said, you have been tapped. You need to be respectful. You need to be honored. You say my words exactly the way I say it. It's not about you. Don't make it about you. And I was like, how am I hearing you? And he's like, this is part of your gift. So these are the rules though. But then he kept pushing me like, go back in and tell my son this and this and that. And I was more like, I get that everybody's cool with this, but I'm the one freaking out. Because Jeff was like making lattes and like, well, what else did he say? And he was all like
Oh, I
kind and
was in
chipper.
it to win it, and I'm like, hold your roll. I'll get your hazelnut non-fat extra foam latte in a minute, lady. I need to know what
One
my
equal.
father said.
Yes. Yeah. This
It
was
was
way
like,
back in the time where Starbucks was like a whole different land. It was very relaxed. We were kind of making it what it is. And
yes,
we were doing this while he was making drinks. It was crazy. And we were like huddled over here. And he's like, here you go, making drinks and doing stuff. And in between, I was still on break. So I was able to kind of come in and out. And I read them. And I didn't
yeah,
call it reading then. I said, I don't know whatever I'm doing, but I did feel really honored that I was able to do this for him. I did know that. I mean, his dad made that clear. And when I wanted to ask you at that time, did you ever feel like it was invasive? Because I wanted to let people know, like, I don't do that. You shouldn't
right,
do that. You shouldn't walk up to people. But I do feel there was a magic that happened, that
yeah,
his dad knew that he needed it, and his dad knew I needed him. Like I
yeah,
needed someone like your dad to feel comfortable with this,
right.
and it opened up a door. But was there a point where you were like, it didn't come into your mind at all? Like, what the hell is this girl doing?
No, I didn't. I've always been very open to that kind of thing anyway. My
Yeah,
mom's side of the family had what she would call premonition dreams, and it may not have been the exact
but that's
thing that,
premonitions. Yeah.
right. She would say, like, I remember my two younger brothers were going to go on a boat trip with my uncle at one point. And she had a really strong dream and called it off because she saw one of my brothers
Oh,
drowning. So
wow.
she said,
Really?
nope, they're not going on the trip. I'm really sorry. I've had dreams like that with my niece. And it's different than regular dreams because you sort of wake up and it's so like, you need to pay attention to this dream. And so that's what I did. That's why I was so open to it, because on my mom's family, that happened a lot. I mean, I can't tell you how many times growing up that my mom would say, okay, don't do this. And I know it sounds crazy, but I need you not to do this. Don't go here, don't go there, don't hang out with that person or whatever. She
Right.
always had like a, intuition. So,
Yeah.
and so I think I've inherited, like I've said before, mine's like a pin dot compared to what yours is, which is like so well honed. I mean, I was close to my grandma. She visited me in my dream. You and I have talked about that.
Right.
So I think I was open to it because I wish I was more like that. Like my thing is like, that would be so great. I know I've heard like Adela and other mediums in the, you know, we won't mention their name, say how like, it's so like, sometimes it's very like so many voices going on, but I guess it's just a matter of honing it and whatever. But
It's
yeah,
absolutely, I feel like we have to also say this. It's absolutely about honing it. And that's one of the things I wanted to have Jeff on here for is that people think I started off like, because this was amazing experience and I did get things right off the gate. There were many other readings I did after that with Jeff, and he will be a witness right now to let you know that it would be 3 hours
oh my
sometimes. And
gosh.
he used to laugh because I would sit and I wouldn't move because he let me practice on him, and I would read like a million different people for
Oh my
one. For
gosh.
two, I felt like if I thought my body was like an antenna, because he'd say, you haven't moved from that
Yeah.
position the whole time, because I didn't know how to control the spirit realm at that time. So I was just allowing anyone to come in, and I would get to the person that the person wanted to talk to, but now you ask me who you want to talk to, and I talk to that person.
Right.
It wasn't like that. And Jeff was patient. He would sit there. I'd be like,
It
you
would
haven't
literally
been,
be 3 or 4 hours, and maybe 7 people would come through, 3 of which I hardly remember, but they were like cousins. And like, don't you
right.
remember? I mean, one of the cousins I remember, it didn't hit me until 3 days later. Oh, that's who what came through. Like, it was
Yeah.
so like random. Like, it wasn't necessarily people not that I
Right.
didn't, but it was just people I wasn't.
No, it wasn't people and doing the way I did it led me to wanting to hone it. And I was like, hey, this is wasting people's time. I want to get it sharper. I want to be
Right.
able to get right to the person. But he was one of the people I used to practice on. And he would just be sitting there looking at me. And I was like, I don't, he thought I was doing it for a long time. But I thought, like, why is he being so patient about this? Is taking forever. But
Look, I just wanted to hear from anybody who wanted to talk to me.
right, he liked it.
Anybody who wanted a message. And what's crazy is I remember when one of my grandmothers came through, this freaked me out, but not really freaked me out. It was just sort of like, what did you just say? Because I had one grandmother, my paternal grandmother, who came through. I don't know if you even remember this, but she came through and you said, she keeps saying, darling, darling. And
I
I'm
do
like,
remember that.
wait a minute. Is she saying darling? And you're like, oh, yeah, darling, darling. And I'm like, that's what my grandmother said all the time. How do
Yeah.
you know? Like, and she described her and how her person, I mean, it's crazy because for somebody, and I never talked about that grandmother, but so very in tune, and I can't doubt that there is anything but this is really happening. I mean, I just reached out to you recently, obviously, and it's crazy because I haven't talked to Adela in what, 10 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably.
We've talked like a lot of people do, social media. Right.
Yeah, but not like actually
Not
talk on the
talk.
phone or,
Right.
and I didn't even know if I had her number right. Texted her out of the blue because I kept having this feeling I needed to talk to her again. And that, I recently lost my mother. So I felt this urge. And so anyway, texted her out of the blue. I'm like, I don't know if this is your number, but if it is, this is Jeff. And you were like, oh my God, I was just thinking about it yesterday. And I'm like, say what?
Yeah. When he texted me a couple of days ago, I'm not on Facebook anymore, and that's where we used to connect mostly. And it popped in my head. I go, well, I'm not on Facebook. I don't know if Jeff. I wonder how Jeff is. He's not gonna be able to find me. And a day or two later, he texts me. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. But the thing is that all the things he's saying, it came about because, first of all, this is what I always try to tell people on here. It's because Jeff was allowing it, and he was allowing this to happen. Like that day could have went completely different. If he was like, screw off, I'm making lattes, I would have been like, fine, let's just make drinks, I'm out. I would have never attempted it again. I would have never even, I would have just chalked it up to like, I would have
Right.
freaked me out. I would have probably found my way, but it would have been a whole kind of a harsher way, I believe, because I remember his father was his father to him, but to me, he was like this teacher that popped in and was pushing me and was so kind but firm. And I trusted him. And I was like, why do I trust this? This is like a strain. But Jeff being open and kind about it and being allowing it to happen made me go, okay, maybe I can do this and not feel afraid. Now, it took me pushing through the fear, because people ask me all the time, like, well, what do you do? I go, you have to also push through the fear. It took Jeff being open to it. We all win. And I just kind of believe that we're all here helping each other. And so I felt like I got honored to help Jeff. And I felt like Jeff was able to, his dad was, I did something for his dad and his dad did something for me. And let me tell you, don't think I didn't check in with your dad a few times after that, like helping me with this path. And I did, and more than Jeff probably knows. But because I trusted, and there was lots of confirmations because I did tell him more stuff. But I feel like, to what your point is about you having this, I want to give this an example when people ask me, you have this. I've told you this many times. He's tuned into things all the time. If he wants to push it a little more, he can. It's up to you guys.
Right.
It's up to him. If he wants to, he will. If he doesn't, and he just wants to play with it when he wants to, then okay. So I always say, not everybody's going to be a professional piano player. Not everyone wants to do it professionally like
Right.
me, but we all can play the piano. Like, not
Right.
everybody wants this piano. But clearly we were, his dad was pushing me, knowing Jeff was the perfect conduit for me to trust.
Right. To give you
Because
the confidence to do it.
after
Right.
Jeff, I tried other people, and it didn't go so well. People were like, you're weird, get away. I mean, I was right about stuff, which freaked them out, and they did not
Right.
respond like him.
They did. Well, they don't, a lot of people don't want to hear it because it
They
makes
don't
them
want to hear it.
uncomfortable.
And honestly, I don't recommend, I don't tell people to just walk up to people, and I did shut it down, and I did learn how to respect people's space. You know, I just didn't know what I was doing. I don't, but that's why I feel like this is a very special situation. And have you had experiences yourself? Maybe tell people, just different experiences.
Definitely dreams.
Yeah.
Dreams for me. I've had, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, who I was like super close with.
Right.
She's come through right after she passed, she came through many times. This is before I even knew you.
Right.
But she came through a few times. And somehow, even though she didn't vocally say anything, I knew what she meant. Like, so
that's
that
telepathic communication. That's a knowing. It just comes through you.
That's for sure. I do remember a very vivid dream with her where I was at my front door, mm-hmm. and we were outside, and I remember opening the door in my dream and being like, and she was standing outside. I go, Grandma, come on in. And she's like, I can't come in there. Like, I can't go in there. I can only be out here. And I was like, okay. And then I woke up. So, I don't know what signs, symbols, whatever. To me, it was like, we were okay to be outside because she could be in, but when it came into crossing into this realm, she was like, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. So that's so what it is because it's a world within a world. What she was basically saying is, of course, we can connect spiritually, but I can't exist physically in that world.
Yeah.
It's not like she was obviously showing like, hey, listen, we can connect and feel each other, but I can't just walk indoors anymore. That's how that world. Anyway, you've had a lot of shit like that happen, Jeff.
Yeah, and with the dream I had about my mom recently, that was like, it was so vivid, and I was telling Adela about this, is that it was so vivid that I woke up out of a really deep sleep, at like 2:30 in the morning.
Which is the time it happened.
And I had to like write down the dream, and it was so vivid. And I mean, I won't get into details, but like I was
personal. Yeah.
right. But what I was telling Adela when we had my reading, not, earlier today, I told her the whole dream, and she was like, that's so unusual that it was so vivid, but apparently there was a lot of similarities to a dream you had about your own mom. So it's weird. It's like, I'm trying to be more open to it.
Without giving away anything personal, what I was trying to say is that when you have dreams, you're actually going to that realm to visit with them. And a lot of the stuff that happened in his dream was very telling to that's what was happening. Very telling. And so I had to explain to him, like, he's like, what does this mean? And also when you come back from these dreams, it's like you kind of almost like, it's because your spirit's is visiting in that realm most of the time. So there were certain things that happened with him that I was like, it was very, very, not just unusual, but in like impact, like this is definitely what was going on. And I say this because, again, people get frustrated a lot. People don't have dreams at all, Jeff. So like what you had is even beyond. But people kind of feel like there's something wrong with them, or the spirit world doesn't want to talk to them. It's when sometimes when you're in a lot of pain or you're not sure, you block it off. Not because there's something wrong with you. It's just hard. It just feels it's intense, so unconsciously. So I'm just saying this because these things are available to everyone. And that's the only reason why I read. And that is what I got from your dad. What I got from your dad that day was, you're here to help people. You're not here to like act like, look at me. A matter of fact, there was a point, you don't know this, you don't remember this, but there was a point in the time we were talking and I was being all like, yeah, you were like, you're amazing. And I was like, yeah, okay, I mean, I am kind of amazing. And he was like, no. I was like, exactly. And I was like feeling it. And he was like, no. And I heard him go, no, this isn't about you, remember? And I was like, actually, I'm not amazing. Just thank you so much. Your dad's getting upset with me. And he was like, this isn't about you.
That sounds like him. Kind of like, let's be real here.
Yeah, he was like, bring it down a notch. And that was like his role. So I feel like what I wanted people to know, the backstory, this is where it all began. But also, I want people to realize, like, there's some reasons why it all began. It like took Jeff being open. When you guys are asking me these questions, and yes, I've honed it a ton since then.
Yes.
A ton. Like it was hours of Jeff probably cooking.
I can't believe how different today. I can't believe how different.
Still reading them.
I can't believe how different today was versus 10 years ago. Like you're
hours.
The idea is like you are like bullet point. This is what I'm saying, and it's. I mean, it's astounding to me to see the growth. Like having known you from when you were like, I don't even want to do this, to like, I guess I'll do this, to like, here's 75 people in your past who are coming through. Do you remember your great Aunt Edna? And I'd be like, who? To now it's like, who do you want to talk to? Great. Get them on the phone. They're on the phone. Good. Here's what they're saying. And
that's
it's like,
exactly how I look at it.
Like to me, it's really, I mean, that's very impressive. So
I appreciate it. And also I want to say before we go that Jeff doesn't realize how trippy it was to like read him today, because it's like when you have these amazing experiences, how many people get to kind of revisit it, and I just like, his dad to me has been like this icon figure in my head.
So weird.
And now his dad's like, yo, okay, this. He's like, because I'm very used to it now. Right. But I was like, who is this man speaking over the voice speaker? It was very like, solely, and I've kept him, and I still keep him in that, because I know this was a big start on my path. So I wanted to have him on here because I have been on podcasts, I've done TV appearances, interviews, and people have asked me over and over, where did you think it really happened. And I'm like, this is the story. It's Jeff.
That's me.
That's him. And it all started with a latte.
It all started in a box.
We
Thank
won't
God
say
that's
what we
over.
used to call it. That's a whole nother. That's a whole nother.
Wait for
video.
that podcast, guys.
Wait
That's
for
going to
it.
be a fun one. We're going to have
Yeah.
lots of guests.
The history of Starbucks in LA and how it began. We were the OGs of the time.
The culture, the Starbucks
Before
culture.
boxes were checked, before names were put on. That's a whole nother story. We don't want to give it all
gosh.
away.
We don't
give it all away.
Not now.
Just say you're looking at the OGs here. We were the third store to open in Los Angeles, which is pretty big deal because LA is a big place. So that's a whole nother ball of wax. But thank you, Jeff, for coming. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks for coming on online. But thanks for little honesty. We did this whole thing before, and Adela didn't record it. So Jeff has brought it to the table yet again. Thank you for your patience, Jeff, and thanks for coming.
You're
He's
welcome.
very funny, and this is his humor, but I know he knows what I mean. Okay, guys.
All right.
So Jeff's not going to tell you where to find him. You're going to have to figure that out for yourself because he is keeping it private. But I want to let you guys know, just to remind you, I am doing a class on the 1st of August on how to open up the gates and manifest. That's on my website, daylevine.com. A lot of you have already signed up. And you know where to follow me on Instagram. I'm still offering 50% off of all my readings during this really difficult time. And follow yourself, follow no one, listen to their inner voice, and I'll see you guys soon.